Didn't bring my
98. From the Bhagavata. Bhagavata Mahapuranam is the most important Puranam of the 18 Puranas. Oh, this is on page 98 of Universal Prayers. English translation is on top of page 99. The first one on page 98. Yasminnidam yataschedam yenedam yaidam swayam yosmat paramat parasmacha parastam prapadye swayam bhavam yasminnidam yataschedam yenedam yaidam swayam yosmat parasmacha param tam prapadye swayam bhavan. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I take refuge in the self-existent being in whom the universe rests, from whom it has sprung, by whom it has been brought into being, who himself constitutes it, and who is at the same time distinct from both cause and effect. To him I bow down. May the Supreme Lord bestow his grace upon us all. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony among all the beings. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Okay, let us start. We were doing chapter 3, the concept of yajna. In this part of chapter 3, beginning from slokas 8, 9 and onwards until 16. These slokas form one unit. They explain the concept of cosmic yajna, a very important cosmic. Our very existence here depends upon yajna. We will understand how. What is yajna? How we all depend upon yajna happening all over nature at all times, 24 hours. So we were studying last time. Slokas 12 and 13. 14 we have to do today. In slokas 12 and 13, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, the concept of yajna was created at the time of creation by the Creator. Whenever he created all the beings, animals and plants and nature, at the same time, yajna also was created. Yajna means mutual dependence and mutual support. Every part of this nature is connected to every other part of this nature. They support each other. We will see how. And we have to support those beings, animals, plants, and nature from whom we derive our sustenance. And we depend upon them and they depend upon us. So we are part of a cycle. We cannot break that cycle. How it's the whole one cycle is going to be explained in shloka number 14, very important shloka. 14, 15, two of them. So let us do shloka number 14. अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्न संभवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः 15th also कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवं तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्. So these two slokas describe the cosmic yajna at the cosmic level, global level. At the individual level also yajna is going on within our bodies. Within each being yajna is going on, and at the cosmic being, cosmic level also yajna is going on. These two slokas describe the ongoing yajna. It never ceases, day or night, at the cosmic level. So let us understand. Shall first follow the text and then I'll give a simpler explanation. 14, Shloka 14. Annad bhavanti bhutani. Bhutani means all beings. Bhuta means something that has come into existence. Bhu bhava is the root. That which has come into existence. Everything. People, animals, plants, and nature. Here, Bhutani means all the beings. People, human beings, animals, and plants. These three kinds of beings. Upon whom they depend. Annad bhavanti bhutani, they depend upon food. Anna means food. Without food, we cannot sustain, we cannot exist even for a short time. We need food. Animals need food. Plants also need food. So all the beings, people, animals, and plants, three kinds of beings, they depend upon food. Annad bhavanti bhutani, one part of this yajna, cosmic yajna. Now, how does the food come into existence? How does food grow? Food requires water. Without rain, food cannot grow. So that is explained in the second part. Parjanyadanna sambhavaha. Parjanya means rain. The god of rain or rain. Parjanyat, from rain, anna sambhavaha, food is produced. Water is needed for production of food. That comes from rain. So we depend upon food. For food to grow, rain is necessary, water is necessary. See already the interdependence connection. How does rain come? Next line. Yajnad bhavati parjanyo. Parjanyaha yajnad bhavati. Parjanya means rain. Rain depends upon yajna. What is yajna? That is a different point. In the earlier days, and even now to smaller extent, people performed yajna, Vedic yajnas, very elaborate yajnas. And they would set up a homa fire and offer various offerings to the fire. And this is one view, Vedic view. And all the offerings would be offered to various deities, Indra, Agni, Yama, Parjanya, Ayu, Surya, including god of rain, Parjanya. That offering should go into the atmosphere. In the atmosphere, they would form the clouds. And with the help of sun's heat, sun's rays, cloud would come back to earth as rain. That is one view. But these days, that kind of Vedic yajna is not very common. We don't generally do the kind of yajna. So how does rain come? For rain to come at the right time in the right quantity, we have to support the atmosphere. What is happening, unfortunately, now is we are noticing so much climate change, global warming, depletion of the ozone layer, too much carbon dioxide, all these things are happening because these things are generally, which scientists say, that are depend upon the overuse of energy. That is non-renewable energy. You use too much of that, especially in industrially advanced countries. Per capita energy consumption is much more than in less advanced countries. So this extra too much consumption of energy is affecting the atmosphere in a negative way. We see so much forest fires and all those things happening. So the action that people do affects the nature. Whatever actions people do affects nature in positive and negative ways. Animals also perform action. Their actions also affect nature. Plants also perform action. Their actions also affects nature. Generally, the effect of actions performed by animals and plants is positive. Sometimes the effect of actions performed by people are negative. So let us see how animals play a part in this cosmic yajna. For example, bees, birds, squirrels, they all promote pollination. That is how plants grow. Pollination is necessary. They do it naturally. And the very humble earthworm, which you don't normally see except when it rains, we don't pay any attention to the earthworm. You know how crucial a part earthworm plays? You don't realize. It fertilizes the soil. Very important part. The earthworm plays its part in nature in maintaining fertility of the soil, nature. We don't recognize, we don't acknowledge. It just so trees also play their part in maintaining balance in nature. What do the trees do? They absorb carbon dioxide released by animals and people. In return, they produce oxygen, which is it sustains human life and animal life. See, they're all playing their part in nature. That is yajna. They're giving something, and in return, they are receiving something. The giving part is called yajna. So if we don't give and only keep on receiving, that will upset balance in nature, and we are not doing the right thing. That's what Sri Krishna said in the 13th previous shloka. Yajna shishtashanas santo muchyante sarva kilbishai bhunjate te tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat. We receive all the benefits from nature all the time. Our life depends upon plants being there. If they don't give oxygen, how can we live? They are sustaining our life. But what do we do in return? Instead of planting more trees, which some people do, some people needlessly destroy forests. Because recently I read in news that the federal government has allowed many the large parts of rainforest in Alaska to be logged. Logging companies can go and kill trees and produce log. That permission. Forests have to be preserved, but they are allowing the forest to be destroyed. So that disturbs the balance in nature. We have to see that one. When we perform any action, we have to see the global implications of our action. That is yajna. If I am doing this action, how does this affect me? That is my personal view. How does it affect other people, animals and plants and nature? That we have to think. Okay, develop that global perspective and perform all our actions in that global context. That is, the spirit of sacrifice is called yajna here. So nature depends upon what people do, animals do, plants do. Yajna bhavati parjanyo, yajna karma samudbhavaha. How can we do yajna? By doing all our actions as yajna. We are not able to do Vedic yajnas like the rishis in the olden times used to do, but we can do every action as yajna. Everything that we do in the 4th chapter, we'll see even breathing, seeing, touching is also yajna at the individual level. So any action that we do, we should do it in such a way that it produces a positive effect on whole of nature, animals, plants, and other human beings. Our action should not produce any negative effect on other people, animals and plants and nature. Cultivating that kind of attitude is very important. That is yajna. Yajna bhavati parjanyaha. Yajna karma samudbhavaha. All our karma should be done as yajna. Yajna depends upon performing our karma as yajna. That is shloka number 14. We'll come back to this after I finish shloka number 15. Now, all karma happens according to the prescription and prohibition given in the Vedas. So, shloka number 15, karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. Vidhi means no, understand. Here, the word Brahma is used in a different meaning. The word Brahma is not the Brahma, the creator, Srishtikarta, Prajapati, not that Brahma, not supreme reality Brahman. Here in this shloka, and in a few other places in the scriptures, Brahma means Veda. The scriptures created by Brahma at the time of creation. Karma brahmodbhavam nidhi. What karma has to be done? What karma should not be done? And how should the karma be done? All that is described in the Vedas. Karma brahmodbhavam. Brahma means here Veda. Vedas describe karma. Prescribe karma. So where do the Vedas come from? Brahma Akshara Samadbhavam. Brahma here means Veda in the first line. Akshara Samadbhavam. Akshara means supreme reality. Parabrahman. Supreme Brahman. That is the cause of Veda, the producer of Veda. Everything comes from Brahman. Just as in the opening prayer I read from Bhagavatam, everything comes from Brahman. There also, the Vedas also are produced by Brahman at the time of creation. That came in earlier. Saha yajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi, one earlier shloka came. At the time of creation, when the Lord created all the beings and nature, he created the concept of, he created Vedas also. And Vedas contain the concept of yajna. Therefore, second line of 15, Tasma sarvagatam brahma nityam yajna pratishtitam. Therefore, the all-pervading Veda, sarvagatam brahma, Brahma means Veda, is eternally rooted in work, yajna pratishtitam. So this mutual dependence, we have to understand. Everything depends upon everything else in nature. To put it in a slightly different way, same idea, I will try to explain it in a different way, which is easy to understand. If you want to write at the top, the first thing, the cause of everything, how everything starts. How everything starts from Brahman. Brahman is supreme reality. So Paramatman, Akshara is used, word uses Akshara. Brahma Akshara Sambhava. Akshara Parabrahman is the root cause of everything first. That is explained in the Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad says, all things began with Brahman. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. Yata means from whom or from which. Imani bhutani jayante. All beings came into existence. Yena jatani jivanti. Jatani bhutani, all the beings that came into existence. Yena jivanti, by whose power, Brahman's power, they exist. They live. Yat prayanti abhisamvishanti. All the beings that were created by Brahman, sustained by Brahman, go back into Brahman. Prayanti abhisamvishanti, at the time of their cycle of existence. So Brahman is the root cause. First thing he is at the top, Paramatman, Aksharam, called Aksharam here. One thing, source of everything. That's where everything begins. Now, that Paramatman, Brahma, created creation, brought the creation into existence. At the time of creation, he brought Vedas also into existence. Sa yajna praja srishtva Puravacha Prajapatihi. Sa yajna praja srishtva. Vedas and people, beings, praja means all the beings, three kinds of beings, were created at the same time by the creator, at the time of creation. So Paramatman, then Veda came into existence at the time of creation. Second, Vedas describe karma. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. Karma is described in the Veda. What karma to do, what karma that should not be done, and how to perform karma. All those things about karma are described in the Veda. So karma comes from the Veda, from the Vedas. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. Karma comes from Brahma. Brahma here means Veda. Now, by performing karma as yajna, karma turns into yajna. Karma can be done in two ways. As I explained on the earlier occasion, karma is like a key up to the old-fashioned lock, not the digital lock. Old-fashioned locks used to have a key, and that key would insert into the lock, and it can be turned left or right. If the key is turned left, lock opens. If the key is turned right, lock closes. So karma is like that. If karma is done not as yajna, then it binds us, locks. Where that was explained, shloka number 9 in chapter 3. Yajna arthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Shloka number 9, Sri Krishna said, if karma is not done as yajna, then it binds us, karma bandhana. If karma is done yajna, it frees us. It becomes yajna. It supports the whole cosmic cycle. Karma has to be done as yajna. Yajna karma samudbhavaha. So yajna comes from doing karma in the proper way as offering. Now, for people to perform yajna, even animals also perform yajna. They don't know, they don't chant mantras or anything, but they are performing yajna all the time. How are the animals performing yajna? As we saw, birds, bees, animals, insects, earthworm, every animal is performing its part in nature without complaining and without escaping. People do various things. So, for people and animals to perform their yajna, food is necessary. For food to be produced, rain is necessary. And rain is produced by performing all actions as yajna. So this is how there is mutual dependence, interdependence in the whole of nature. Every part of nature is performing its part properly, except human beings that sometimes do, sometimes they don't do. Sometimes human beings perform actions which are contrary to the interest of nature. That's why we are having all these adverse effects in nature, natural calamities, forest fires, and too much rain or too little rain, floods, and all these things, all the calamities are to some extent at least traceable to the actions of people. So this is how the cosmic yajna is going on all the time. This yajna is going on, every part of nature giving something, receiving something. We all give something, we receive something. Animals give something, they receive something. Trees give something, they receive something. That is the concept of yajna in the whole of nature, described in shloka number 14-15. Now, what is one thing that is common to all these things? Common to the Vedas, to yajna, which is karma performed as yajna, common to rain and food and beings. What is one thing present in all? Brahman. Brahman is present in all. Is present in whole of nature, is present in people, is present in animals and plants and everywhere in nature. It's present in, Brahman is present in the mountains, in the ocean, in water, in sun, which produces all the energy, everywhere in earth, everything is pervaded by Brahman. That is the first lesson in Vedanta. God is present in all the beings in a invisible form. It's not visible. That's explained in the Kathopanishad. There it says, Esha sarveshu bhuteshu gudha atma na drishyate. Esha atma, the supreme Atman or Brahman, sarveshu bhuteshu, in all the beings, gudaha remains hidden. Guda means hidden. Na prakashate, does not come out and publicize itself. Hey, look at me, I'm God present in you. It doesn't say that. It remains behind the body, mind, intellect, unseen by the ordinary eyes. It is that common presence, universal presence of the divine presence in all the beings at all time. That is what makes everything possible. Everything is, even the power by which a small ant crawls on the ground is made possible by the presence of God, Brahman in that ant. Otherwise, if not, nothing would happen. Everything that we do is made possible by the presence of Brahman in all. That is explained in the last Nityam Yajne Pratishtitam. In every action, God is present. Now, to take one specific example, how God is present in everything. One example is given by Sri Krishna himself in the 4th chapter, and you all know the shloka. One shloka in chapter 4, you all know, because you chanted before taking meals. Pramarpanam, you know that shloka? There Sri Krishna explains how Brahman is present in everything, in all actions, in everything. So Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. We all chant it before eating meals, right? What does it mean? Everything is provided by Brahman, including the food that we offer. Brahma Havihi. Havi means the offering that made into the yajna. Eating is yajna. How eating is yajna is explained in 424. Now, first thing we have to notice in this eating as yajna is the presence of God in each one of us. Animals, plants, human beings. In all of these beings, God is present. As what? Vaishwanara. As Vaishwanara, God is present in all the beings, in plants also, in human beings also, in animals also is present. Whether we are aware of it or not, he is present round the clock as Vaishwanara. How do we know that one Vaishwanara is present in all? Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna has said that one. Chapter 15, verse 14. There Sri Krishna has said, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamasritaha. Aham, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is saying, Vaishwanara Bhutva, as Vaishwanara, Praninam Deham Ashritaha. I have taken up residence in the bodies of all the beings. Prani means that which is prana, life. Living beings, including plants and animals and people. God is present as Vaishwanara. Now, what does he do there? He's not simply keeping quiet there. He's very active. Round the clock, he is active. Even when you are sleeping, he is active. How is Vaishwanara active, supporting our life? There, as Vaishwanara Agni, he digests all kinds of food that we eat. Prana Pana Samayuktaha Pachami Annam Chaturvidham. Every kind of food that we eat, Vaishwanara is digesting for us. He's working for us round the clock. We don't realize it, we don't recognize it. You don't thank him for that. How is he digesting the food? Supposing we all eat dinner at night, evening, then some people eat dinner and then they may or may not pray before dinner. Some people do, many don't. After eating, they watch some TV, news or something. And then after some time, they go to bed and sleep. As soon as we finish eating, or even as we are eating, his work begins. He starts digesting the food. And over a period of next few hours, the food digestion goes on. When you are nicely sleeping, he's doing his work, hard work. He's hard at work, digesting the food that we eat. That's Vaishwanara's function. So in all these actions, including eating, God's presence is to be seen. So coming back to 424, Brahmarpanam Brahma Vihi, Brahma, now the Agni, the fire, digestive fire present is Brahman as Vaishwanara. Brahmana Hutam, who makes the offering? Human beings which we eat. Animals also eat, plants also eat. So that who is the animal being, animal, human being, plant? Brahman again. In all the beings who eat, is present as Brahman. The food we offer is Brahman, and the offering is made by Brahman. The food itself is Brahman. All these things Brahman. So in every action like this one example, eating is one example. In the same way, every action, including breathing, walking, eating, talking, here Brahman's presence has to be seen, can be seen. He is present in all. That is the concept of yajna. Recognizing God's presence, doing our part diligently without escaping, being thankful for everything we receive from animals, plants, and nature, other people contributing a lot. Without other people contributing, we can't do anything in this life. As we saw last time, for every small thing to happen in my life, other people have to work hard. We don't normally recognize that one. I give the example of the cloth that we wear. No, I can't make this cloth myself. I can't grow cotton in my backyard and make it into yarn and cloth. Somebody else does it. So many people do it. Thousands of people are involved in producing the cloth, growing the cotton and spinning, weaving, marketing, everything. So I'm indebted to them. When I wear this cloth, I should remember how many people have worked hard for me to wear this cloth. The food that we eat, how many people have to work hard to produce the food that I eat? I can't grow all the food that I eat in my backyard. So many thousands of people have worked on it. Some in different countries produce the food. Poor laborers in farms, they work hard for small wages. And that's because of their labor, all these other people, intermediate people, producing, manufacturing, processing, transporting, making it available, I'm able to eat the food. So if we think like this every action that is in our life is made possible because of other people's contribution. They're all working hard. People will make the car in which I travel. I say, this is my car, I drive. For me to have a car, I can't make the car in my garage, workshop. Some thousands of people have worked for it in different countries to make the car which I drive. So how can I show my indebtedness to all these people? I don't know who they are. I can't go to individually every one of them say thank you. It's not possible. So how can I repay all the gifts that I'm receiving from other people, from animals and plants and nature? How can I repay? Doing all our work as yajna, doing my part diligently, nicely, and a little bit extra if possible. For everything I receive from other people, animals and plants and nature, all the time I'm living because of oxygen produced by plants. What should I do in return? At least protect the plants and plant more trees and don't destroy the trees unnecessarily. That kind of understanding is the spirit of yajna. We all have to develop that spirit of yajna. Everything that I do is an offering. That is why in the many places in the Gita, Sri Krishna says how to do as yajna. If we are doing so many things, Sri Krishna says again and again how to do everything as yajna. It starts with this third chapter. Sri Krishna says, whenever you do any action, do it as an offering. That instruction comes in several places. Whenever I do any action, do it as an offering. Offering means I'm doing it for the benefit of other people, animals, plants, nature. If some benefit comes, I will take it. But generally, this is done as an offering because I've received so many things. It's just a small thing that I am giving in return. Small thing that I'm doing is in return token of my appreciation, my gratitude for everything that I have received from nature, animals, plants, and other people. The spirit of giving is the essence of yajna. Sri Krishna says it in many places. I'll give two places, two examples, where Sri Krishna says, do everything as yajna. Once already has come, chapter 3, verse number 9. Chapter 3, verse number 9, Sri Krishna says, any action that is not done as yajna is going to be binding. Yajnarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana 3:9. One place. Second place comes in this same chapter 3, verse number 30. 3:30. There Sri Krishna says, Maya sarvani karmani sanyasya dedicating all actions to me, God is saying. Me means whole nature, dedicating it to other people, animals, plants, things. God is in all of these things. How can I give everything to God, anything to God? He is not coming, standing in front of receiving our karma. Do it as an offering to other people, animals, plants, things, and nature, as an offering to the society, to the country, to the whole of nature. That is offering. That is yajna. That is said 330. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. And then chapter 9, sloka number 27. Again he says the same thing. Whatever you do, do it as an offering to me. He says, Yat karoshi, chapter 9, verse number 27. Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yajjuhoshi dadasi yat, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushamadarpanam. Whatever you do, including eating, specifically he says eating, yadashnasi, do it as an offering to me. That instruction comes in many places. Do everything as an offering, everything as yajna. That is how we maintain balance in nature. If you break the balance in nature, then there'll be disturbance all over the place. In our lives, in the life of the country, in the life of the nation, in the life of everything. At every level, there will be negative impact of our negative actions, not the next yajna. That's the spirit of yajna. It's a very profound concept, yajna. In every moment we have to do everything as yajna. Being aware of that one as an offering. Not for me, not what is in it for me, how can I benefit from it, should not be the consideration. How does my work affect other people in a positive way? It's a small thing, we don't have to do very big things. You cannot all donate millions of dollars in charity. In a small, humble way, every action we do should be done as an offering with love, with gratitude for everything we have received. With diligence, with love, we have to do every action as yajna. That is the spirit of cosmic yajna here. In the next chapter, we will see how at the individual level yajna is happening. Here we saw at the cosmic level, Parabrahman, nature, creation, Veda, yajna, karma, and rain, all these things. In the next chapter, we will see how every action that we do as individuals is also yajna. That will come later. So now we move on to sloka number 16. Here it says the negative result if we don't do as yajna. Sloka number 16. Evam pravartitam chakram nanavartayati hayaha agayurindriya ramo mogam partha sajivati. Evam pravartitam chakram nanavartayati hayaha agayurindriya ramo mogam partha sajivati. Evam pravartitam chakram. Chakra means a cycle. So we saw the cosmic cycle, how everything affects everything else. What would affect animals, plants, and nature? What did affect us? All this mutual dependence, mutual interdependence we saw in the previous 13-14. Here he says, Evam pravartitam chakram. This cycle that has been established in nature from the time of creation. The cycle has been there from the time of creation, moment of creation. It's not a new thing. Yaha na anuvartayati. That person who does not follow, does not conform to that one. That means a person who keeps on receiving but does not give anything. Such a person who breaks this cycle, chakram na anuvartayati, does not conform to this cycle. Such a person is aghayuhu, indriya ramaha. Aghayu means he is a sinner. Agha means sin. Sinful person. Receiving, not giving anything. That we should not do. We should give, at least to some extent. In return for everything we are receiving, every moment you are receiving, every breath I take, thanks to the plants producing oxygen. Do I recognize that one? No, we don't think. We just keep on breathing. When we are sleeping, plants are protecting us by giving oxygen. So how profound is this interdependence? Only Gita explains that one in this simple way. It's a very profound concept of yajna. Give and take. Everything depends upon give and take in whole of nature. So we have to do our part. We have to do more because we are human beings, gifted more faculties than animals and plants. Animals are doing all the time, plants are doing all the time, but we are the ones who need to be coaxed to do what we have to do. We sometimes fail to do what we have to do. That's why Sri Krishna says, a person who keeps on receiving and not giving, who breaks the cycle of the cosmic yajna, such a person is a sinful person, agayuhu. Agha means sin. Not only that, Indriya Ramaha, he only enjoys sense pleasures. Indriya means sense objects, sense organs. We are only interested in, we mean some people, I'm not generalizing everybody, people are doing as yajna. Some people only enjoy their life. Oh, how much more food can I eat? What food can I eat? What clothes can I wear? What car can I drive? All those things they are interested in enjoying the fruits of nature. And what are we giving in return? If anything, very little. Some people are there to do everything as yajna, do a lot of charity, karma yoga, volunteer, everything. A lot of good people. That's why the society is at least running this way, because of the presence of many, many good people. Dharmic people are there in every country. They are there. That's why society is being sustained. But a lot of people don't do that one. So Agayur Indriya Ramaha, Saha Mogam Jivati. Moga means in vain, fruitlessly. Such a person's life is in vain. God has given this precious human birth. Human birth is the greatest gift that God has given to us. If you are born as in a tree or an animal or a plant, our action is very limited. But since you are having given this human birth with so many extra faculties which other beings don't have, if we don't use these faculties, gift given by God, then our life is lived in vain, happens in vain. Where Moga means in vain, use in a useless way. Every day goes, every year, every month, every year passes, and one day we die. Nothing has been accomplished. Nothing has been done. That kind of life we should not live. Agayurindriya Ramaha Mogam Partha Sudivati. Whether you do something good or not, whether it's something good or bad, time keeps on moving. One day end will come. Our lifespan is finite, not infinite. One day it's going to come. So before that end comes, what am I going to do? How am I going to live every day of my life? Every day is a gift. Every day, every hour, every moment is a gift from God, very precious gift. And how am I going to use the gift that God has given me, this human life? That should be our thinking. Agayurindriya Ramo Mogam Partha Sajivati. A very nice verse. Then we go to now until so far, until shloka number 16, these have description of cosmic yajna and instruction to perform everything as yajna. Two things so far. Now next two shlokas, 17 and 18, there, what is the benefit of doing all our work as yajna? How does that transform our lives, and what happens as a result? That is explained, the positive effect of performing everything as yajna. In the previous sloka, the negative effect of performing not as yajna is explained in the sloka number 16. 17, 18, they describe the positive effect of performing all our actions as yajna. What will happen? You'll realize your divine nature, will say God. If you do everything as yajna, that is explained here in 17, 18. That is the sloka number 17. No. Yastvatmaretirev syat आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते यस्तु आत्मरतिरेव स्यात् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते. We become free from the bondage of karma phala. That's one step behind self-realization, God realization. So let us see how it happens. Yaha to atmariteva syat. Atmariti means, Rati means supreme ananda, bliss, enjoyment. Atmariti means a person who performs all actions as yajna reaches a stage when the inherent ananda present in us will spring forth and we experience that ananda. Infinite ananda comes from within, not from outside sense objects. Atmariti means, Riti means enjoyment or joy. Atma means from the self. All happiness, even the happiness that seems to come from sense objects, from food and children, from grandchildren, from job, position, pay, money, property, all that happiness really coming not from there, coming from the Atman within. They are only reflecting surfaces. The sense objects are only reflecting what they do. They take the infinite joy in the Atman. They produce, they give back to us very highly distorted, dim reflection of the joy of the self, Atman. That's all they can do. So a wise person performs all actions as yajna, and that enables him to experience the joy of the self directly without going down through sense objects. Without the help of any sense object, that person enjoys supreme bliss coming from the self within. Such a person is called Atmariti. That's what yajna does. If you perform all our actions as yajna, mind becomes so pure, Chitta Shuddhi will come, and the purity of mind enables us to experience divine bliss within us. Already present 24 hours, it is there. We are not experiencing it because our minds are clouded by selfish attachment, etc. If you do all actions as yajna, what happens? Mind becomes transparent, free from attachment, selfishness, anger, jealousy, lust, greed, etc. And that puts us in touch with the self within. We experience directly the presence of God, Atman within us. That is source of infinite joy. Atmananda will come. Vishananda means sense, pleasure coming from sense objects. Very limited, temporary, conditional. Not the ideal. Atmananda means, Atmariti means the joy that comes straight from the self, unfiltered through the sense objects, directly experiencing infinite, unconditional, eternal joy. That is the result of performing everything as yajna. There's a profound concept here. What happens if you do everything as yajna? This is what happens. You become Atmaritihi. Atmaritreva syat. Atmatraptascha manava. Atmatrapta means one is content with the self. No hankering for sense objects. There is nothing sense objects can add to such a person. He's already experiencing infinite bliss. What more sense organ can add to that one? One more car or one more child or another $1 million, nothing. Infinite joy is already there. What these things can add? The infinitesimal, not, they don't hanker for that one. Atma triptaha. Atmanyevcha santush. Santushta means same as tripti. Content within itself, not greedy for sense objects, sense pleasures. Tasya karyam na vidyate. Why a person when he has reached such a stage, then what happens? There is nothing more to be done, nothing more to be achieved. Highest achievement has been reached. There is nothing more that can be achieved. Reaches the climate and the climax of human existence. The highest thing that a human being can achieve in this life has been achieved by a person who has done all actions as yajna. Very simple. You don't have to change the actions. Same work we have been doing, we can continue to do, but do it as yajna, change the attitude. That's all that we have to do. That's the essence of all spiritual practice is right here. So that's very, very nice, profound concept. Yes, Atmaritre Vasyat Atmatraptascha Manavaha Atmanyevacha Santushtaha Tasya Karyam Na Vidyate. An ordinary person leading a selfish life seeks happiness outside in sense objects, eating good food and enjoying sense pleasures and clothes and dress and property and relationship. In all these things, he seeks happiness, ordinary person. But a wise person does not care for these things. He finds infinite happiness by in his own self-within, which is already inherently there. It doesn't have to be obtained from outside. 24 hours from birth on before it has been there. That joy, this person directly experiences infinite joy, unconditional joy. How? By purifying the mind. How? By doing all actions as yajna. You see the connection? Action is imperative. You can't stop action. Every time, every moment you are doing something or other. Doing the same action as yajna is all we have to do. Change the attitude. Karma can remain the same. Then what happens? By doing it for a long time as yajna, as worship, as offering, mind becomes pure, free from selfishness, attachment, greed, lust, etc. When mind becomes pure, presence of Atman becomes experience. We experience God's presence. He is present even now, but you are not experiencing God's presence. You are only experiencing body, mind. That experience will come, that will give infinite joy, unconditional joy. That is the benefit of performing all actions as yajna. Then, almost have time, we can do one more, verse 18, which is same. Naivatasya krite nartho na krite neha kaschana nachasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidarthavyapashrayah. Sloka number 18. Tasya, such a person, kritena arthaha na, nothing to be gained by doing something, nothing to be lost by not doing anything. Na kriteneha kaschana. Such a person has nothing to gain by doing something. People do something to gain something. If I acquire that one, I'll be happier. If I do this, I'll be happier. So doing something, getting something is what ordinary person does. Hoping to get experience from, hoping to get joy from outside world, sense objects. For such a person, there is no such thing to be done. Whether he does something or not, he is unconditionally joyful, infinitely joyful all the time. That does not depend upon doing something to get something or not doing something to get something. There is no such dependence on outside activity. Nachasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidarthavyapashrayah. There is no one or nothing on which such a person depends for happiness. Independently happy. We are not independently happy. Our happiness depends upon what other people do, how they treat us, how the body treats us, what kind of food we eat, what kind of things that we do, what kind of house in which we live, whether they all affect our happiness. Something goes wrong and I will be unhappy. My happiness is highly conditional, highly dependent. For a person like this, he is independently happy. No matter what happens outside, what other people do or think about him, what happens in nature, what happens in the world, society, nothing affects that person's happiness. Unconditionally, permanently, inherently happy. That is what doing yajna does to us. Benefit of performing all actions as yajna. Okay, we'll stop here now, and we have some very little time. You can ask me some questions, or if you want to add something that I said, you can do it now.
Face in our regular lives is that somebody brings a gift and you don't want to say that you don't want to take the gift. And so you take a gift, and sometimes you offer a gift even though you may not have gotten anything from the other person. So it's a two-way street, like somebody offers something and the other person gives, they're supposed to.
Yeah, it is give and take. Some people offer something that I can offer.
No, they didn't ask. You see, what I'm saying is, somebody brings a gift for you,
Yes.
or
Yes.
for your children, whatever. And
somebody
then
gives you a gift, then what happens? Somebody gives you a gift,
right?
Then you can receive it if
Okay.
you feel like, if it is necessary.
Right.
And sometimes social obligation you have to receive. To say no, they will not feel good. In that case, you receive it and then give equivalent gift to somebody else, not to the same person.
Right.
something more in return to these other people, needy people. Somebody who can really use something that you have, give it. That way you are free from receiving, you're giving more than you receive. Next one.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Sometimes it's necessary to say no. I know a person in Chicago. She's a emergency room physician, doctor. Now she's retired. When she did all these things, she said, God has given me so many things: good job, husband, wife, children, everything she had. Why should I receive any gift at all? So in workplace and Christmas time, everybody has to give some gift in this country. That's Christmas time, birthday, you have to give some gift. Otherwise, not good. So one year she told all her colleagues, other doctors and nurses and technicians in the ER department, she said, this year I don't want to receive any gift. Please don't give me anything. The colleagues didn't understand. They started objecting. Why are you rejecting the gift? This is our tradition. We have to give gift.
Mm-hmm.
She said firmly, she said, no, I have everything I need and more than I need. Why should I take any gift? And the first year, everybody didn't appreciate that one. Second year onwards, they started appreciating. They all understood. It took some time, but really it requires kind of courage to say no. Generally, if we don't accept, they don't feel good, so we end up accepting.
Exactly.
And so you give something to other needy people who are really in need of something. A lot of people, needy people in this society, every society, give something that you can use. Need not be the same thing. What they need, what they can use. In the 17th chapter in the Gita, topic of gift giving comes. There Sri Krishna says, when you give some gift to somebody, give to such a person who cannot return anything to you. Anupakarine. If you give to somebody, your colleague will give you something else. That is not necessary. Give to somebody, a poor person who has nothing to return from him, you don't expect anything in return. To such a person who give a gift which he can use. That will come later.
Swamiji, can you hear me?
Can I ask a question, please?
May I also ask?
Two people are asking at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Pradeep, can you ask? And Sushmaji, you can ask after him.
Yeah,
okay. This is Pradeep Saha from Raleigh. Okay, Swamiji, one thing is so revealing that in Gita, Sri Krishna said things 4,000 years ago, which we are now learning. This interdependence of human being, animals, and plant life, and this global climate change, etc. How can we not use Gita not as scriptures, but as a social studies in schools and colleges throughout the world?
A lot of information comes later in a social service in the Gita. There is one professor, I forget his name, Satya Prakash is there, and he has written several books on Gita as a social studies textbook.
Right, and this should be taught in schools and colleges, throughout the world. I mean, this is not a scripture. It could not be taken as a scripture.
They think of it as a religious book and they don't teach religion.
No, should not take it as a religious.
In India schools, they cannot teach Hinduism.
This is something funny, because Swami Ranganathanandaji said this book, Swami Ranganathanandaji said to General Chaudhary in mid-60s that this is a book for modern age, and it's not really scripture, ritualistic scripture. It is a life study. Anyway.
Yeah, you are very right.
Yeah.
There is no description of rituals here.
Correct.
All those things are not there. It tells how to live our daily life.
Correct. Correct. And it does not depend on whether you are Hindu or Christian or Muslim or what.
Same concept.
Correct.
Same truth.
Right.
But it's pursued as a religious book. That perception that this Hindu religious book is what is causing the problem.
I know, but
if the same thing is written in modern language without mentioning Gita, people will accept it. That's what people are doing there.
Yeah.
They're passing all Vedanta, everything in the name of some modern new form of psychological something. Then people buy that one. But if you say
Right.
Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna, then it won't sell.
I know.
What to
Yeah,
do?
I have seen one management consultant in Boston 15, 16 years ago. He was buying Vedanta's book as part of management
Yeah,
school,
that's true.
offerings.
Hmm.
So anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good comment.
Sushma ji.
Sushma ji.
Sushma ji, you have to unmute yourself.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
You
I
can
can-
hear me? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, Swamiji, my question has to do with what was done last time when you were saying that we should do all work as an offering to God.
Hmm.
And also one example came up, which was in chapter 5, slok 8 and 9, where the Jnani says senses are performing connected to sense objects, I do nothing.
Yeah.
Now, when we say I do nothing at all, is it the Lord? I mean, there is an enabler which makes it possible, right?
When we
the
say
action can't-
nothing at all, Jnani
So
can say that term, because I there means not the body mind.
I know.
For the Jnani, I means the Atman. For majority of us, I means the body mind. So we say I'm the doer, because body mind does the action. So for us, it is okay to say I'm the doer, but we should modify by saying I'm only a servant, I'm only doing it as an offering. That way I can still be there, but reduce its position. Jnani goes beyond the body-mind awareness. He says, I am the Atman. So Atman, what action is there? So that's a different domain, different paradigm. Right now, it is hard for us to go to a Jnani's position. So we should say, I'm the doer, but I'm doing it as an offering, as puja, as a servant, I'm doing this. Let everybody benefit from it. Like that, we should think safer.
Rangu has a question.
Amiji.
Rangu has a question.
Swami, mine is a very small and silly, maybe silly question. I just want to be sure, is karma as yajna the same as karma yoga?
Yes. The essence of karma, yes, doing it as yajna. Not with selfishness, but as an offering. Without expecting selfish benefit. As explained in 248, Sloka 48 in chapter 2, that is what karma yoga essence is. Two things, without attachment, sangam tattva. Second thing is remaining unaffected by success failure. Siddhya siddho samabhutva. Sangam tattva means giving off as offering. Attachment by doing it and then you are not attached.
Thank you, Swami.
Okay.
Swamiji.
Swamiji, I had
Swamiji, one quick question. It's not related to Gita, but I want your wisdom on this. They say when a person is about to die, they should not die on the bed. You should put them on the ground. Is that a superficial thing, or is there a scientific basis for that?
I don't know about any scientific basis. I don't think it matters. What matters is what the last thought was, what the person was thinking on the time of death. Whether on the bed or on the ground, I don't think it makes a difference. But what matters is that person thinking about God at the last moment. That comes in chapter 8, sloka 5, 6, and 13. That's what makes a difference.
So it doesn't matter if you die on the bed or on the ground or whatever.
As far as I know, I don't think so it matters.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Amiji, Pranam, Kohinoor from Phoenix.
Kohinoor asked me.
So what I understand is essence of Gita, understanding versus applying even a small essence of teachings in real life. There is a huge difference.
Yes.
So I understand probably most of it, but I cannot apply none of them, if you think. So with that perspective, if I say, when I see that someone is making some mistakes or someone is going in the wrong path, and I try to give a suggestion,
Hmm.
whether it's a minor child or adult.
Hmm.
In many scenarios,
Hmm.
they get annoyed or offended.
Yes, very
So
common.
what should be our duty in those kinds of situations? That's my action.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I don't want to be just saying something with sugarcoating just to make them feel good. But
Okay.
I have to call a spade a spade.
Yes.
But that's an action too.
They don't listen to your advice. That's what you are concerned. You tell them this is wrong, don't do this one, this what you're doing is wrong, but they may or may not take your advice. Then what do you do? That is the question, right? It depends. If it is somebody for whom you are responsible, your child, you are responsible to guide the child. If it says something wrong, you have to correct the child. If you are somebody is a student, you have to correct the mistake made by a student. You are responsible. That is your duty. You have to correct people. But if some other person, another person does a mistake, and you tell them, you have to tell them, say a friend or co-worker or somebody in society. But if they listen to you, it's well and good. If they don't listen to you, done your part. You can't change anybody's life. Impossible to change anybody's behavior, action, or attitude. Impossible. Even our own attitude, we can have difficult to change. So do your part and then leave it at that. Result is not up to you. To point out is your duty. Even that is not sometimes total stranger does something wrong. Everywhere people are doing wrong. I cannot correct everybody. I can't even tell them don't do this. That won't work. Sometimes you have to tell, point out, do it, and then leave it. Result is not up to you. Karma only you can do. That's second chapter, Shloka 47. Anything else? Okay. Shall we say the closing prayer? Okay. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy, may all be free from diseases, may all realize what is noble and auspicious, may no one be subject to misery. Om, peace, may there be peace and joy in our hearts, may there be peace and harmony amongst all beings, and may there be peace everywhere in nature. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all and stay well.